Well, I knew somehow when I was in high school I wanted to become an American diplomat and work for our foreign service. My grandparents had traveled around the world, and perhaps that was what had given me the inspiration. And I knew that Georgetown was one of the best ways to get into the State Department because of the background and education it provided, and it proved to be true. My name's David Hale. I'm currently the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, and I graduated from SFS in 1983. Well, I've been a diplomat for 35 years. I went straight into the Foreign Service after college, and I've got so many things I'm proud of in serving my country. One of the great moments was when I and my team in Pakistan helped effect the release of an American family that had been held hostage by the Taliban. That was really great to reunite them with their family back in the States. Well, I don't know where to begin. I mean, SFS prepared me in so many ways for a career in the State Department. There are courses, one of them Practicing Diplomacy Abroad, which I took, which actually teaches the very skills that I found I needed as a diplomat. Also, it was great preparation for the Foreign Service exam itself because of the broad curriculum that Georgetown has, the liberal arts background, and then the focus on international relations is really a terrific combination for diplomacy, to learn about the world, history, economics, a language, theology, literature. All that is building a great diplomat. Two professors that had the biggest impact in my career were Madeleine Albright and Armand Mayer. Everyone knows Madeleine Albright, of course, Secretary of State, but I was in her first class actually at Georgetown, and in the class we all played a role model as a team of national security advisors and heads of different departments. And I remember I played the Secretary of the Air Force, and we were debating what to do about the MX missile. But she just taught me so much about diplomacy, and particularly that our nation's strength is based on our values, the strength of our economy, and the strength of our military. And that was something I've carried with me throughout my career. When she became the Perm Rep in New York, she invited me to join her there, and so I worked with her there. And I was one of the action officers dealing with the campaign to elect a new Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan. And then when she became Secretary of State, I went down as her executive assistant to Washington and spent 2 years by her side on doing, watching and learning all the things that the Secretary of State does. And that was just a phenomenal experience that has taught me so much, and it was a perspective that is very rare to be able to have, a real honor. And I apply that all the time now because I'm better able to anticipate what a Secretary of State needs to get his or her job done. Armand Mayer may not be as well remembered, but he was a very distinguished American diplomat, ambassador to Iran, Japan, and Lebanon. And he initiated the course called Practicing Diplomacy Abroad that I mentioned. It's still taught today by Tazy Schaefer. And that gave very tangible skills on how to do diplomatic work, reporting, representation. We each had a case study that we would do. And he would set up interviews with former or current ambassadors who were involved in that episode in diplomatic history. And so he would give you access to these really legendary figures in diplomacy. That was a very strong memory, had a big impact on me. Certainly one favorite memory is the basketball games. So Georgetown was doing really well in the early 80s, as you might remember, and so those were some fun games. I would say also, though, I had an exchange program in Ecuador my sophomore year, and that was a great memory too, to spend a long summer in Ecuador. I learned a lot. That trip to Ecuador I mentioned proved to be oddly valuable. Just a few months ago, I happened to go to Ecuador because there's been a change in government there, and there's an approach that's much more in line with U.S. interests. So I went there to basically engage and show that we were working together. And I mentioned to people that I had been a student there, and it just opened doors. Everyone felt that there was a connection, and it made it so much easier to begin the conversation with the president and the foreign minister and whatnot. Talked about it in the media, and they loved hearing about that experience. I even went to the university, Universidad Católica, and I had a session with the students there. So it was just a great door opener. On the one hand, I do believe in fundamentals, and I think that the things that I learned at Georgetown are still very important to give you a basis to be a diplomat or do whatever you want to do in the international arena, to understand our own country, our own history, our own culture, and of course the world abroad. I also believe, though, that at least in my business, science is increasingly important in what we do. I have conversations about 5G technology and Huawei with other diplomats. Obviously, I'm no expert, but I have to understand the fundamentals. We talk about the environment, we talk about arms control issues and defense procurement issues, and you have to know what you're talking about, or you're not going to win the argument for America. So I would say look at those technological and scientific areas for greater strength. My background's in the Middle East. Most of my career was in the Middle East. I was ambassador to Jordan. And during my time there, the King of Jordan, The foreign minister, the information minister, the head of the royal court, and the planning minister, and myself had all been at Georgetown at roughly the same time. We weren't all friends at Georgetown, but it meant that we had a common experience that created a bond and an ease of communication that made a difference. And you look certainly the area I know, the Middle East, Pakistan, you find Georgetown alums making a difference in so many walks of life, not just in high government positions, but in other areas as well, education, cultural areas.